Hello everyone, this is Monaro and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about Game of Thrones Season 6 Episode 10, the finale. I know I'm late, but let's get to it. I love the opening scene of King's Landing in preparation and anticipation for this trial by seven. The music that was played was brilliant, showing everybody as they get themselves ready in their different clothing, everybody filing into the sept. I thought it was great. Then we see a scene of Marjorie looking around. I think she was looking for Tommen or for Cersei. Then they go and get Loras and bring him into the sept. And there he confesses to all of his supposed sins, and he renounces his title to Highgarden. And as Mace and Marjorie look on, they are carving the seven-pointed star because he says that he wants to become a part of the faith. And then we see the mountain stopping Tommen from going to the sept. And then we see Cersei pouring herself a glass of wine as she gets ready, I guess, to watch the show. Then we see Marjorie going up to the High Sparrow, saying that something is wrong, that Cersei and Tommen are not there. So he sends Lancel to go and get Cersei. While he's on his way, he notices this little kid and he goes after them. Then we see Pycelle being told by one of the other little birds that the king is looking for him, and then he goes down to where his office used to be and he sees Qyburn, and Qyburn confronts him, and then essentially they have an exchange, and then the little birds come out and then they stab him up. Then we see Lancel down underneath the sept, and then we see the caches of wildfire, and then he is stabbed by one of that little bird that he was chasing. Then we see Marjorie confronting the High Sparrow, saying something is wrong and then they need to get out. And when she goes to grab Loras to get out, she's stopped by the Faith Militant. And we see the look on the High Sparrow's face. He suspects that something's not right. Then we see the candle fuse, and then at the moment of ignition, we see it in Lancel's eyes. And then they hear the rumble. Everybody in the sept hear the rumble, and people are trying to get out, but then it's too late. It just explodes, and then we see the High Sparrow just decimated by this wildfire, and then the whole sept explodes. I mean, everybody who is in there is gone. And then we see Cersei wineboarding Septa Unella, telling her to confess, to confess, to confess. But funny enough, it is her that is confessing all of her supposed sins to Septa Unella. And then she tells her that, she's going to meet her gods, and she says yes, she's ready, but she said not today. But Cersei says not today, and has Sir Gregor come in and leaves her in the room with Sir Gregor. As she's closing the door, she's yelling shame, shame, shame. Then we see Tommen, who is devastated by what he's just seen, and this scene was so eerie because it's quiet. He takes off his throne, he walks off screen, and then he comes back and then jumps out of the window and commits suicide. And then later we see Cersei sees his dead body. Then in River Run we get the phrase, Walder Frey in particular, being really smug. We see Jaime and Bronn having a bro moment, and then we see this young serving girl. She has a part to play for sure. Then we see an exchange between Jaime and Walder Frey, where Jaime shuts him down. Then we go to Dorne and we see Lady Olenna in all of her greatness shutting down what are supposed to be the Sand Snakes, and says that she is out for vengeance. Cersei has taken the future from her, but she is out for vengeance. And Elia promises her her heart's desire, and then in comes Varys, offering her fire and blood. Then we get Danny saying goodbye to Dario, saying that he can't come with her, that actually she wants him to stay to kind of keep the peace in Marine. Um, and then she tells Tyrion, yeah, that she let him go, but she didn't feel anything about it. But he said, don't worry about it. You'll find plenty of other people to love you. And then she names him Hand of the Queen. And I thought this was such a great moment. I was so happy for Tyrion, finally, that, he gets some props. Then we get to Old Town, and then we see the tower, and I believe those are the ravens that are leaving the tower to announce that winter is coming. And then we get this really cool exchange between Sam and the the head librarian. He was brilliant. I loved it. Um, it was a really nice, light, comedic moment. And then he ushers Sam into the library. And as Sam is walking through the library, he's kind of touching the books and the chains and stuff. And then, just from the look on his face, you can probably imagine the wonder. And we get this amazing shot of this freaking library. It is absolutely amazing. Then we get the white raven that is flying towards Winterfell to announce winter is coming. We see John and Melisandre in the Great Hall, and he tells her about where he used to sit when they used to have gatherings. Then Davos walks in and throws the burnt stag at Mel, and she confesses, yes, that she did burn Shireen alive, but also that her parents agreed to it, and Davos tells her that her god is evil, and John banishes her, and Davos tells her, look, if he ever sees her, then he is going to execute her himself. And we see her leaving, and then we get a shot of Sansa and John. She apologizes for not telling him about the Vale army. And he says, look, we have to trust each other. We have so many enemies. We can't be, fighting amongst ourselves. Then we see Peter and Sansa at the Godswood, and he tries to tell her, hey, I want the Iron Throne, and I want you by my side. But she's like, nah, that's cool. But Littlefinger still sows the seed of doubt inside of her by saying, who should the Lord rally behind, the true-born daughter of Ned and Catelyn Stark, or a motherless bastard from the south. Then we get Benjen and Mira and Bran. He leaves them off near the wall by a weirwood tree, and then just rides off, telling him that he's gonna keep fighting for as long as he can. And then Bran sees the weirwood, because the weirwood tree is a hell of a drug, and then he goes in back into the vision, and then we go back to the Tower of Joy, and then we see um, Ned going inside, and we see Lyanna in her bed of blood, and she is just trying to be brave, and this was such a sad scene. And then we see her telling Ned, to protect him, to promise her, and we see baby John is brought out. And then, well, we can't say it's baby John. We see a baby brought out, and then and the next picture we see is John. And then we see Jaime heading back to King's Landing, and he sees the fire, and he rushes down. And then we see Cersei has proclaimed herself queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and they exchange a look that it's going to be serious next season. Then we see the Frey. We're back with the Freys, and Walder Frey is making a pass at the servant girl, and she brings him a pie, and he's asking for where his sons are at, and she's like, they're here, my lord. And he's like, where? They're here. And she presents the pie, and when he opens the pie, he sees a finger, and he looks up at the girl, and she reveals herself to be Arya Stark. And she says that, she's Arya Stark, and she wanted him to know that um, before that she kills him, that that a Stark was looking at him, smiling down while she was killing him. And when he tries to leave, she grabs him and then slits his throat in the same way that her mother's throat was split. And then we get back to the north, and then we have Sir Kerwin saying, hey, they need to be ready for the winter. they need to start making their way back north. And then John is like, you know, the enemy will bring the storm or something like that. And then we get little Lyanna Mormont, who gets up and pretty much calls out all the lords that did not answer the call when Jon and Sansa went around. But then she proclaims Jon her king from this day until his last day. And then we get Lord Manderly, who says, you know, Lady Lyanna speaks harshly but truly, but that he was afraid of losing any more men, but proclaims Jon the White Wolf and proclaims him king in the north. And then we have Sir Glover, who does, you know, who also proclaims him king in the north. And then we get everybody following suit, getting up, proclaiming Jon king of the north. And then we see Jon get up and look at Sansa, and Sansa smiling at him. And then, not to be outdone, we see Littlefinger in the corner skulking. He's going to create some chaos. Then we see a picture of Theon looking up at the Kraken, the Greyjoy Kraken in through the sun. Uh, then we see him and his sister standing on board their ship. We get this beautiful mast. It's lovely. We see Grey Worm and his Unsullied. We see the Dothraki. We see the old master ships have been refitted with the Targaryen sails. We see the Dornish and we see the Highgarden ships. We see the dragons. Then we see Dany, Tyrion, Varys, and Missandei. And then we see a picture of this armada. She is heading back to Westeros. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this season as I kind of made my way through making these little videos. I'm still learning how to edit, but thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. I do plan on making some more videos. I'm doing a reread project of the whole A Song of Ice and Fire series in anticipation of the Winds of Winter. I will be making videos probably every couple of days. I plan on reading 2 chapters a day and then kind of giving my thoughts on those chapters, trying to and hoping to invite other people into the discussion. Again, thanks again for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.